أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المذمومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقل للمؤمنات يغضضن من أبصارهن ويحفظن فروجهن صدق الله العلي العظيم. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur verse 31 that tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their chastity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most beneficent and the most merciful. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Rabb al-Alameen, the Lord of all worlds, who is the creator and the one who has originated and created every single minute thing that you can find in this universe. Every molecule or atom has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is the one who provides us blessings and He is the one who has created us. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is known as Al-Kabir, the Great One. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than anything in this entire universe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the highest and the most elevated amongst everything in this universe. It is because of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the benevolence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we as a community can sit together and we can acknowledge and we can mourn over the tragedies of Karbala that befell upon Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family. In my last lecture, I mentioned the way to get closer to Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Farjuh Sharif is to build a strong foundation, to build a strong army. And I said that one of the requirements to be a soldier of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam is to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Even if we are doing Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, we still feel we have a long way to go before the Imam Ajallahu Ta'ala Farjuh Sharif reappears. We recite many du'as, we recite Dua Nudba, we recite Dua Faraj, we recite Dua Ahad, and there are countless lists of du'as that we can recite for his reappearance. But it seems that Imam is not reappearing. And the question might be, why is he not reappearing? We are preparing for him. And the answer to that question is, yes, you might be prepared for the Imam. You might do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. You might pray your salah on time. You might do all your wajibat. But are you ready as a community is the question. Individually, we might be prepared for the Imam, but if we look from a societal perspective, is the Muslim community ready for the Imam? Do we have enough unity amongst us that we can be ready for the Imam. Many people, they say, yes, we have enough unity. We can go to jihad for the Imam if he reappears at this moment. But there are some people who say that, no, they do not have unity. And why is that? And that is because there is not enough empowerment in the community. And this is very specific, especially towards the woman. Because nowadays, the definition of women empowerment is very modern, and it is very different than the definition of women empowerment in the era of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Back in the era of the prophets, women would willingly go and do jihad. But now, obviously, times have changed. And we might ask ourselves, well, how do I do jihad? How do I help the Imam? The jihad is for men, they go into the battlefield, they fight. How do I, as a female, as a woman, do jihad and be a helper of the Imam alayhi salam? How do I become one of the 50 women that will be part of the 313? And the answer is that our jihad, although it is not physical, it is not a battalion, it is not a battlefield like jihad, we have our own type of jihad. We have our own types of struggles. And one of those struggles is building a community that empowers women and that teaches children, young girls who will grow up to become mothers and daughters and sisters, all of them, teaching them, giving them ilm, and helping them enhance their love for the Ahlulbait AS, and helping them enhance one of the greatest and biggest things in Islam, which is the hijab. Hijab is the symbol that we are powerful. Hijab is the symbol that I am a Muslim woman that is aware of my capabilities. I am a Muslim woman that knows my limits. I am a Muslim woman that knows how to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hijab is a representation of our obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in a way, it is a symbol that no, we are not oppressed. In my last lecture, I talked about oppression as well as nahi anil munkar. And near the end, I said that the concept of hijab in the modern world is that it is oppressive. Many people, they assume and they think that the more layers you have on, the more oppressive and oppressed you are. The more layers that you have on, the less freedom you have. As soon as you begin to take away those layers, the Western world portrays you as a free lady. But in Islam, the hijab is not perceived in that way. The hijab is a choice. Many people, they get asked, oh, is the hijab a choice? Are you forced to wear it or are you not forced to wear it? And people often also ask that, if you're wearing the hijab, why isn't she wearing the hijab? Is she Muslim? Do you get punished for not wearing the hijab? People outside of our faith have many questions, but we do not have satisfactory answers for those questions. We do not have sufficient answers for those questions. Sometimes we hesitate. We stutter, oh, yeah, so hijab actually it is difficult to explain, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it wajib. That is not what hijab is. In my opinion, whenever someone asks me that question, I would tell to them, hijab is a choice. It is an option. You get to choose between two choices. You get to choose between the choice of obeying your Khaliq and your Malik, your Creator, your Lord, or you get to choose disobeying that Lord and having a sufficient excuse on Yawm al-Qiyamah of why you didn't wear the hijab. That is how I answer such questions. It tells them that no, hijab, it is a choice, and it also tells them that those who do not wear the hijab, they have some sort of consequence. They have some sort of punishments in the hereafter. The surah I recited, Surah An-Nur, it is ayah number 31 in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives 4 conditions on how to maintain modesty in Islam. The very first principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us is to lower our gaze. And this ruling and this command has been applied for both men and women. It is for both genders. If you look into Surah Ankabut or even Surah Tawbah, in both surahs you will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed ayat, He has placed verses that say that women and men are equals, they are allies, they have to work together and unite and empower one another. The concept of women empowerment we have nowadays, we want our rights. That's what's written on the slogans. We want our rights. We want our freedom. Let us free. Give us more rights than another gender. This is the definition of women empowerment nowadays. But oh, mourners of Hussein, women empowerment is not talking with the opposite gender. Women empowerment is not sitting in a restaurant full of the opposite gender. Women empowerment is not being friendly and casual and carefree. Women empowerment is not wearing inappropriate clothes. The true woman empowerment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, it is modesty, it is hijab. And His first command, He says, is to lower our gaze. To look at what we are looking at. Look at, observe. Should I be looking at what I'm looking at? Ask yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says this to the men first and then to the women. He says, lower your gaze. Because if we meet our gaze with someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what will happen. So in order to protect us from any possibility of committing a sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the command that lower your gaze. Do haya'ul uyun, the modesty of the eyes, because He knows what happens. He is aware of human nature. There was a man who used to recite the adhan at a mosque. And this man, he was the mu'adhin. This man had 2 other brothers. In total, there were 3 brothers. And so this man, he recited the adhan for 10 years. 10 years he recited the adhan. But then the man, unexpectedly, he passed away. So then the second brother was ascended to the position. He was promoted and he was the next mu'adhin. Now this man also, he recited for a few years, and this man also then passed away. Now the people, they did not have any person to give the adhan. They no longer had the mu'adhin. So they thought, why not go to the third brother? The people, they go to the third brother and they ask the third brother that your brothers used to recite the adhan, so we will pay you. We suggest that you recite the adhan and we will pay you for that. The brother says outright, no. I am not going to recite the adhan. I decline your offer. And then they say that then the people who are asking the man, they say that we will give you even more money than we originally said. We will triple it, quadruple it. Just recite the adhan. We really need a mu'adhin. The man, again, he says, no. Even if you times the amount that you originally told that you will give me by 100, I will not go up and recite the adhan from that minaret. Now the people, they are confused. They are worried. Why does this man not want to recite the adhan? So they ask the brother, that is the adhan a sin? Is it haram in Islam that you don't want to recite the adhan? The brother replies, no, it's not a sin. That's not the reason I don't want to recite the adhan. The adhan is mustahab, it is recommended. So the people ask them, why are you declining such an offer? Why do you continuously not want to recite the adhan? The brother said, the reason why I don't want to recite the adhan is because I do not want to die the death that my brothers died. My brothers, they died as kafirs, kuffar. They died as disbelievers. And now the men were shocked. People who are the mu'adhin, the people who used to give adhan, they died as kuffar? How is that possible? So then they ask the man, how did your brothers die like that? And then the man narrates the story and he says, I was confused as well. He said that when my brother was breathing his last breath, I wanted to recite Surah Al-Yasin for him. But my brother declined and he passed away without the recitation of Surah Al-Yasin. And then when my second brother passed away, I also wanted to recite Surah Al-Yasin for him as well. And again, the same incident occurred. The brother passed away without Surah Al-Yasin and died as a kafir. So now I was very confused that why did my brothers die in such a state? Then he says, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I had a dream. I had a dream that my two brothers, they were being tortured immensely in the grave. They were facing such excruciating pain. So I asked my older brother that, oh, older brother, why are you facing so much pain? Why did you not let me recite Surah Al-Yasin and this pain would decrease in your grave? The older brother said that the reason that we are facing so much pain is because we did not lower our gaze. He said that when we would recite the adhan on that minaret from the window, both brothers, me and your other brother, we would peek from the window and look at the women of other households they would not have hijab on, but we would still continue having the audacity to peek at them. And while we were doing the remembrance of Allah, we were reciting the adhan, the dhikr of Allah, we would lose our ikhlas, our sincerity, because our focus was towards those ladies. So when we died, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to punish us like this, because we did not have haya al-ayun. That is the importance of lowering your gaze. The second principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this surah, particularly in this ayah, is to guard your chastity. What does chastity mean? Chastity is the honor and respect of a woman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that keep your chastity, keep your honor and respect safe. Keep it safe. And He wants us to not commit any deeds that potentially might ruin our reputation. This not only goes for physical hijab, this is also our spiritual hijab. We cannot commit any sins. We cannot say anything haram. We cannot talk in a way that we are trying to gain some attention. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to guard our honor, but speak in an eloquent and respectful manner. Do not speak rudely. Do not speak impolitely. Guard that chastity. There was once a man, his name was Anas ibn Malik, and he was amongst the companions of Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked the companions, Imam Ali alayhi salam was in the gathering as well. He asked the companions that, "O companions, what is the best form of worship for a woman? What is the best deed, the best thing that a woman can do?" Now the companions, they gave many answers, and eventually they did not get it right. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam denied all of those answers. So confused and a little bit bewildered, Imam Ali alayhi salam, for the sake of the companions, he goes to say the Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, Sayyidat al-Nisa al-Alameen. And he goes to the lady of Jannah and he says that your father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, asked such and such question. Do you know the answer to this question? And Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha says that the best deed for a woman is for men not to look at her and for her not to look at men. She says that it is best that a woman does not do something, does not wear something, does not say something that attracts the looks and the attention of a man. And in the same way, she herself should lower her gaze and guard her honor and not look at men. Subhanallah. Look at the great wisdom of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. Say the Fatima Zahra, our lady. But Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the third point, the first point was lower our gaze. Second was to guard our chastity. The third point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is to wear some sort of veil or hijab or a scarf around your neck, your shoulders, and your head, and your chest as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this veil in very different forms in the Quran. One of them, He says, is jilbab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this because he knows the adornments of a woman. He knows that the most essential and beautiful parts of a lady is their hair. It is their upper portion, their face. Their hair is what makes the woman beautiful. And so he specifically tells us to guard that. He tells us to wear something over it that covers such body parts. You see nowadays that the hijab of our generation is much, much, much different than the hijab of the Prophet's generation. The hijab has now traveled around the world. The hijab has now become westernized. In the Middle Eastern, you will still see some people wearing very loose, not too fitted clothing, and it would cover the body parts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks. But when the hijab was introduced to the Western world, the Western Muslims, they made it a fashion trend. You see in advertisements, you see on runway models, that the hijab has become a fashion symbol, that the hijab has been styled and it has been adjusted so it can look more modern. But this modern version of hijab is not acceptable according to the Sharia, according to the law of Islam. But no one goes against it. It is normalized. This is why we have to remember that we cannot follow people, we follow Allah. These trends, it has been normalized. And now young girls, when they are introduced to hijab, they wear it very loosely. They put on clothes that are very tight fitted, or they wear hijab with some tight jeans, or their shirt does not cover completely. But they do this because they have seen trends do it, which is why it is important for family to establish real hijab, true hijab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cares about us so much that even in our graves, if you look at the difference between the kafan of a man and a woman, the man has around 9 pieces or around 8 pieces between those two. And the woman, she has 11 pieces, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants her to cover up, wants her to cover and safeguard herself, safeguard her respect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even cares for us the moment we breathe our last. The last principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number 4, he says in this verse, is that we keep our adornments hidden. And what does this mean? Our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, has narrated, and I am paraphrasing this hadith, that he said, everything should be covered. Everything should be covered with a hijab, with loose clothing, except the hands, the face, and the feet below the ankles. That is what we are allowed to show. The rest should be covered in a loose material, in a flowy that is very loose, that does not show the shape of ourselves. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that do not show your adornments, he refers to everything except the face, the hands, and the feet. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why does he tell us to cover ourselves, cover our adornments? I'll use the example of a banana. If we look at a banana, it's yellow, it's ripe. As soon as we peel the banana, what happens to the banana in a few days? What happens? The banana begins to rot. It begins to smell. There are flies around it. And eventually it is so rotten that you have to throw it in the trash. You discard it. And this is not even just, this is when you open the whole banana. Even if you open the slightest bit, the banana will still rot. It still gets fungus. It still will have to be discarded in the trash. The same way that a banana peel protects the inside of the banana, the ripe and the moist parts of the banana, our hijab protects our nur. It protects our respect, our dignity. It protects the beauty and adornment of a lady. As soon as we take off the hijab, just like how we take off the banana peel, or even if we let the banana peel open a little bit, even a crack, even if we open our hijab loosely, the banana begins to rot. The same way our nur begins to rot, begins to fade, because we are exposing our adornments. When the hijab is completely off, when the banana peel is completely off and the banana is exposed, what happens to it? Flies start roaming around. The same way when we are completely not wearing the hijab properly, or we might not be wearing full hijab, the complete proper hijab, then characterless people in our lives, people who have ill intentions, start to buzz around us. They start to pester us. They start to bug us. And that nur fades even quicker and faster. That nur no longer stays preserved. And then what happens to the banana at the end? It rots completely until you have to throw it in the garbage. The same way when you have completely let go of the hijab, and this is not only physical hijab, this is spiritual. If your character does not also have hijab, when you have completely let go of yourself, then you will find yourself at the bottomless pit of Jahannam. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means when He says, guard your adornments, keep them safe. We should guard it. We should be modest, like the ladies of the Ahlulbait AS. If you look at Karbala, you look at how Zainab and Kulthum and the daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Zakira bint al-Hussein, even she knew and understood the value of hijab at 2. She was 2 years old when she started wearing the hijab. She was 2. And Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha, Lady Kulthum, they gave many sermons and they admonished Yazid for taking the hijab of the ladies of the Ahlulbait while leaving the slaves of Yazid with hijab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is why He says, guard your adornments. Be like Lady Fatima Zahra, who says to keep your hijab close to you. Be like Lady Fatima Zahra, that even when people would not see her face, she would still wear the hijab. Be like Lady Fatima, that when she passed away, she said to Imam Ali alayhi salam that, oh Ali, bury me in the middle of the night, and I, in my wasila, in my will, I tell you that you are only allowed to do my shroud. You are only allowed to perform my kafan and ghusl. Why does she say, bury me in the middle of the night? Lady Fatima Salamullahi alayha says this. Some scholars, they say that she says this because the Arabs, they would have wooden coffins. And they would customize those coffins to match your height. So Lady Fatima said, bury me in the middle of the night, O Ali, perhaps because she did not even want the enemies of Islam. She did not even want mahram to know her height, to know how tall she was. That was the modesty and hijab of Lady Fatima. And her daughters, Kulthum and Zainab, followed as well in Karbala. Inshallah, we will next discuss in our lecture the importance of tawalli and tabarri. And the last point I would like to make is that when you wear the hijab and you begin to love the hijab, you will automatically begin to love the Ahlulbait AS. And when you love the Ahlulbait AS, you will automatically begin to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But all that we need to do is learn about their lives. We need to understand what did they value, what did they not value. And once we understand their values and their miracles and everything about them, we will automatically have tawalli. And we will automatically have tabarri for those who hurt them. Inshallah, we will discuss that in another lecture. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to keep the hijab on our heads at all times. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the path of modesty and ensure that we do not lower our chastity, our honor and respect in this dunya as well as the akhirah, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us for the remembrance of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the du'as for those who want to visit the 14 Ma'sumin and their shrines, and they would like to visit the holy city of Mecca and Medina, inshallah. For those who want to do Hajj and Umrah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their du'as, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those 50 women who are part of the 313 of Imam Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala Farj Sharif's army. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten the reappearance of the 12th Imam, inshallah. May we have the hijab and modesty like Lady Zainab, like Lady Kulthum, like Lady Sakina, and like Lady Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.